This is Dateline News and Conversation. Many of you will remember the movie The Music Man. We got trouble right here in River City, and it starts with a T and it rhymes with P, and that stands for, you remember. Well, today we've got trouble everywhere. We got trouble in Ukraine. We have trouble in the Baltics. We have trouble in Poland. We have trouble in Kosovo and Serbia. We have trouble in Armenia, and we have trouble in Georgia, and we have trouble also in Azerbaijan. And tonight the topic is the trouble between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The trouble is over the region of Nagorno Karabakh, or Artsakh, as they call it in Armenia. The situation has been deteriorating rapidly this month. The peace talks that had brought Yerevan and Baku to sit down together for serious negotiations in the springtime and early summer have reached an impasse. And many are predicting the risk of armed escalation is growing. Tonight, my guest, she's back again, Natalya Saghiyan from Yerevan in Armenia, to bring us up to date on what is currently happening in Nagorno Karabakh. Natalya, welcome back to the show.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for hosting me again. Indeed, it looks like we have problems everywhere, all over the world. Recently, we've heard about the situation in Africa, where suddenly people thought that they don't want to have French power in their country anymore. We've all heard about it. Unfortunately, South Caucasus has been a burning issue for a long time. Before the color revolution in Armenia of 2018, we had more or less successful negotiations, and we had agreed with Azerbaijan upon a certain pack of actions, which provided for implementation of the rights of people of Nagorno-Karabakh for self-determination over the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan because of legislative moments which I've talked about in your show many times. Just a brief information so that people recall what I was talking about. Before the collapse of Soviet Union, the Autonomous Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh expressed its desire to be independent from the Soviet Union. This is important, not from Soviet Azerbaijan, but from the Soviet Union. In early 1991, that was before the Soviet Union fell apart. And on September 2, we're celebrating the Independence Day of the Republic of Artsakh, which is same as Republic of Nagorno-Karabakh. It has two names. So this is a very important moment for people to understand why is the right for self-determination so important for people of Artsakh, because they already expressed their desire to be independent through a referendum, whereas Azerbaijan declared its independence from Soviet Union with violation of the constitution of the Soviet Union. So there is a legal problem there. Now, after the color revolution of 2018, Artsakh issue somehow became, at least Armenian official Yerevan declared that they are negotiating something, but we never knew what exactly are they negotiating. before Azerbaijan unleashed an unprecedented war against Nagorno Karabakh on 27 September of 2020. This war lasted for 44 days. Can you imagine a tiny republic with 120,000 population fought against united armies of Turkey and Azerbaijan for 44 days? Just imagine the bravery of these people. They stood against this huge, violent army of two giant states for 44 days. And in the end, because the problem here is that Armenia almost didn't support this war in any way. Instead of unwrapping its army, regular army, official Yerevan sent to the front line only mobilized people who were drafted from Yerevan and other regions as a reserve, which means the people who served in the army like 20 years ago. They served in the army, and then when the war started, they were drafted again. Obviously, they remembered nothing about their military service. So with no preparation, nothing at all, they were just thrown to the front line. And those volunteers who managed to get to the front line during the first week. After that, the border was closed. Nobody else was let from Armenia to go there. So basically, Artsakh was left almost alone against these two huge armies. Obviously, Azerbaijan managed to occupy 75% of the territory of Nagorno Karabakh, and what's left of it now is under a big threat. The only road connecting Armenia with Artsakh, which is the only road from where Nagorno Karabakh can get necessary supplies, is the Lachin, so-called Lachin road from Armenia to Karabakh. Because people of Nagorno Karabakh reject any sort of assistance from Azerbaijan because they know that the moment they agree to take one pack of matches from Azerbaijan, this will be the start of integration, which they deny, they rejected because they say we declared our independence. We cannot imagine us living as a part of Azerbaijan because we know the threat. We have been there. We've seen that during Baku pogroms, Sumgait pogroms, Khojalu, and other terrible things that happened to Armenians living in Karabakh. Ever since Nikol Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, in December last year declared that he recognizes territorial integrity of Azerbaijan in the territory of 86,600 square kilometers, which includes territory of Nagorno-Karabakh and Lachin corridor. Azeris thought that now they have a legitimate right to put a checkpoint over there, over Lachin corridor, where Russian peacekeepers are situated. So doing this, Azeris also put Russian peacekeepers in a very difficult situation. Because of course Russian peacekeepers will not enter into an armed conflict with Azeris because of this checkpoint. So the checkpoint is there. No cargo can go through there to Nagorno-Karabakh because they just won't let anything to get there. The only possible transportation were the Red Cross trucks who were delivering products to Nagorno-Karabakh and taking people who needed urgent medical care from there to Armenia. And the Russian peacekeepers who also were delivering food and other necessary supplies. This blockade started on the 12th of December last year. Since 15th of July this year, the road is closed completely. So Artsakh is in total blockade. Today, already they're having shortage of flour, which means shortage of bread. Not to talk about meat or any other necessary products, because they also ran out of fuel. So even if there are certain agricultural things in regions of Artsakh outside Stepanakert, which is the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh, there is no possibility to deliver it to Stepanakert. People are riding horses or donkeys. This is 21st century. Just think about it. To deliver whatever they grow in their small pieces of land to Stepanakert, at least to organize um, distribution of food among people. Unfortunately, there are already registered cases of miscarriages of pregnant women due to lack of food and starvation. A day of yesterday, a first case of death of starvation was registered in Stepanakert. It was a 40 years old man who was of a very bad health, but was not able to get to Yerevan to get help. And because of not being able to go and stand a line to get his piece of bread, which is now being distributed in Stepanakert by coupons, and he was simply all alone in his home and he died of hunger. In 21st century, not somewhere in the middle of nowhere, but in the center of Eurasia, surrounded by so-called civilized countries. This is what's going on now. Yeah, day before yesterday, I read an information coming from Iran that Iranian specialists, war specialists, military specialists, also made a forecast that they see it quite possible for new military activity to start in September. Because Azerbaijan sees that it cannot break the will of people of Artsakh, it cannot force them to open the road from Aghdam, that's the city which is now occupied by Azeris. It's a city of Nagorno Karabakh, which has been occupied by Azeris during the 44-day war. So what Azeris are pushing forward is, what is the problem? Why are you forcing these poor people to starve? Let's open the road from Aghdam to Stepanakert. But people of Karabakh, they're not so simple. Until now, they reject it because they know that, as I said, if they accept one match from Azerbaijan, it will be the beginning of integration, which they reject. Because the West is now pushing forward the idea of direct dialogue between Stepanakert and Baku. So there is the West pushing forward the idea of direct dialogue between Stepanakert and Baku, which is absurd because during the human history you will not find one single precedent when a part of a country who wants to declare its independence, or in our case already declared its independence once, and now is again partially under the control of Metropolia, to negotiate its status directly with Metropolia without mediators. This is nonsense. This never happens in diplomacy. So it is very strange for us here to see how Washington and Brussels are pushing forward this scenario. And when Baku says that the only agenda that I'm going to negotiate with Stepanakert is the program of reintegration of Nagorno-Karabakh into Azerbaijan, which is not acceptable for 120,000 people of Nagorno-Karabakh. Strangely, these people in the West never asked their opinion. Why don't you ask these people living in Nagorno-Karabakh? Why are you deciding instead of them? Of course,
Natalya,
Azerbaijan, there is... Yes?
let me ask you this. When you say people in the West, I take that to mean the United States of America with its subordinates. Would you agree with that? That it's the United States of America
I would.
that is causing trouble? We've talked about this before, using soft power, using threats, using color revolutions, and this is what's happening right now in this region between Azerbaijan and Yerevan. Let me ask you this question. Are the leaders of Yerevan influenced by the United States of America to make these concessions?
Yes. Mr. Blinken is very much involved in this process. He is in constant direct contact with Nikol Pashinyan, Prime Minister of Armenia, and not only, also with Secretary of the Security Council of Armenia, Mr. Armen Grigoryan, who is U.S. institutions bred Soros something specialist. He was a highly ranked official in Transparency International before this revolution. Obviously, he's not just somebody, yes? This is why he is occupying now the post of Secretary of the Security Council of Armenia. He is regularly meeting with people coming from MI6 to Armenia, so Brits also have their fingers in it. But negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan are predominantly taking place either in Brussels or in Washington. But Brussels is not an independent player. We all know that Brussels is just, the other side of the coin of the United States, with Mr. Charles Michel, just a smiley face, who is sometimes saying terrible things with this terrible smile on his face. Like, why don't people of Karabakh just integrate? You know, Mr. Michel, why? Because we have been through it many times. Because we have seen pogroms in Baku and in many other places before the Soviet Union collapsed, when Azeris simply wanted to get rid of Armenians, because if there are no Armenians, there is no problem of Karabakh. And this is what we're going to face if we continue it this way. Ethnic cleansing will probably be the least of our problems over there.
Let me ask you another question. Is Armenia preparing for war? Because I read that Azerbaijan is sending many of its troops to the border of Nagorno-Karabakh and this gateway. Is Armenia responding militarily?
According to information which we received from the so-called EU observers, which are now located in Syunik, that's the southeast of Armenia, where the border with Iran and Nakhichevan, the exclave of Azerbaijan, is going. There we now have the two headquarters of the EU observers. How is it EU when Canadians join it? I don't know, because Canada is not in the EU. But 2 days ago, they posted an information on their Facebook page that they do not observe any movement of Armenian weaponry or whatsoever on the border from Armenian side. So no, Armenia is not preparing to war because I don't know why. Azerbaijan is preparing, I think, to totally crush Nagorno-Karabakh and take over control, take control over Stepanakert. This will be the first step, and the next step would be to little by little, slice by slice, to occupy Syunik. Exactly, the region where significant clashes happened in September last year, where over 200 military casualties Armenian side had, and the Azeris actually moved to their military positions very close to the largest Armenian city in Syunik, Jermuk, which is was a very popular tourist place, but now people are afraid to go there because Azeri positions are situated only 4 kilometers away from Jermuk, and they have a very significant weapons over there. So it's not like they're just people with rifles. So if they fire, it will definitely get to Jermuk. Because what Azerbaijan and Turkey are pushing forward is the Zangezur corridor, which, as they imagine, would go through the most narrow part of Armenia. If you look at the map, like the bottleneck part of Armenia, and if it goes through that, Azerbaijan on the top and Nakhichevan in the bottom, it will definitely separate Syunik from the so-called, I call it the mainland Armenia. And Azeris and Turks want it to be an ex-territorial corridor, which is not regulated by any document. Even the document, the trilateral document that was signed at the end of the 44-day war between Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia, with mediation of Vladimir Putin, it doesn't regulate any sort of ex-territorial corridor. It says that communications are to be reopened in the region, including through territory of Armenia and from Armenia, Azerbaijan to Russia, which we don't need at all. We don't need it because we have a fine operating railroad through Georgia to Russia. So
Okay.
Azeris give us something that we don't need, but they want to take something from us, which they need. So they trade nothing to something that they need very much. They want this Zangezur corridor. So what I'm thinking will Azeris can start military operation at any time without
Okay.
any
So
particular reason.
yeah, what is the role that the Russian peacekeepers are playing? I've read where they have maintained the peace uh, since the war.
Yes.
What role are they performing today, if anything?
I understand that the situation of Russian peacekeepers is very complicated because according to the paper of 9th of November, the trilateral document signed by three countries, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Russia. Russian peacekeepers are supposed to control the Lachin corridor. But the thing is that after Nikol Pashinyan recognized territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, including Lachin corridor, after this, Azeris think that they have legitimate right to put a checkpoint there, where Russian peacekeepers are situated. Obviously, Russian peacekeepers cannot start clashes over there, to push Azeris out. Because Armenia recognized this corridor, as a part of Azerbaijan. So the thing is that now the situation of peacekeepers is very shaky. Because in Artsakh, we also have Soros Foundation bred activists who are now trying to manipulate people, starving people who have no gas, no natural gas, no electricity, no fuel, no food, and only Russian peacekeepers are protecting them from Azeris. Now there are several manipulators over there who are trying to manipulate population of Artsakh against Russian peacekeepers. Because the only goal that the West has in South Caucasus is to push Russia out of this region,
Yeah,
regardless the price Armenians are going to pay for this. They
yeah,
don't care because they've done it in Yugoslavia. They've done it all over the world. It's not because they hate Armenians. It's because they don't care.
yeah,
It's because they have a goal to push Russia out.
yeah.
That's it. And they are not to pay the price. We are to pay the price.
Yeah. Everybody's focused right now in Ukraine, but you just mentioned
Yes.
the former Yugoslavia. You mentioned Africa in the beginning. The United States is really trying to counter Russia and China all over the world, wherever they are. And it's really clear that, and it's public, the basis of American foreign policy is to take down Russia, take it down, get rid of Putin, destroy the country, and steal its resources. And now,
Yes.
official American foreign policy is to do the same thing to China that it's been doing to Ukraine. They've
Yes.
sent nuclear
Absolutely.
aircraft, B 52s, nuclear powered submarines to uh,
Taiwan.
the southern part of South Korea in the East China
Mm-hmm.
Sea. Do the people in Armenia understand this? Do they understand what the United States is really doing all over the world that really has all of humanity on the brink of extinction? Do people there realize that?
Unfortunately, population of Armenia is divided into two camps. pro-Russian and pro-Western, so to say, pro-American. This has also objective reasons because we have a huge diaspora in America, in Canada, in Australia, and these people, because they live in in these Western cultures, obviously they do promote those points of view because they all have relatives here and they talk on the phone with diaspora. And what people see in United States on the lower level, they see Adam Schiff saying, "I'm with you, I will never leave you," coming to meet Armenian protesters in Los Angeles, or I don't know, supporting people protesting in Washington, in New York yesterday when they were holding a hearing in the UN Security Council on the situation in Lachin corridor. Armenian diaspora gathered at by the building, by the UN building, and in front of Azerbaijan consulate. In fact, there's been an incident by the UN building, and a very young man assaulted Armenian young woman in front of the UN building. The Armenian diaspora was there supporting Armenian delegations, supporting people in Artsakh. This is what our diaspora see over the living there. And of course, they're calling their relatives here and saying, you know, our American officials, they're supporting us, our governor, our, I don't know, this senator, this and that congressman. They're signing petitions and they're sending letters to President Biden. But these people do not understand that the big politics is not being made on that level. You know, realpolitik is something totally different. Realpolitik is the interest of the White House in this region. And since the West has been working in Armenia through its soft power for a long time, they have enormous amount of mass media representing Western interests in Armenia, sponsored enormously with huge amounts of money, supported, and several mass media even have a license to broadcast on the entire territory of Armenia, which no other mass media has except of the first state channel. So we can understand that people living outside Yerevan, somewhere at the border, for example, with Georgia, they have no possibility to get unbiased information. So they are more pro-Western because this is what they see when they turn on their TV. And not all of them are able to, you know, use internet, because what we're trying to explain is that this is what West is trying to do. The only interest that the West has over here is to push Russia out of the region. Whereas what Russia is offering, it's not because I'm a fan of Russia or Putin. They're okay. They're an independent state. They have their state interests here in this region, which we respect. But at this moment, interests of Armenia and interests of Nagorno-Karabakh coincide with interests of Russia in our region. This is what we have to understand. That when Russia says that the issue of status of Nagorno-Karabakh has to be put left for future discussion, because at the moment these psychological problems and wounds are so deep that it's not realistic to hope that this issue will be resolved by a peace treaty which is being imposed to us by the West. We have to solve these problems on the grassroots level and then eventually come to a peace treaty, and not vice versa. So this is what we're trying to make people understand, that nobody will help Armenia just because they care about Armenia. No, Armenians have to learn helping themselves and finding right allies. Because in the West, it's obvious, the West has its own interest. But that interest does not coincide with our national interest. And unfortunately, Mr. Pashinyan, Prime Minister, and his team, entirely composed of people, one who underwent Soros training in different parts of the world, even in Turkey. So what they're doing now is they are revising history school books and deleting text from there where it says um, Armenian Highlands. It's not Armenian Highlands anymore. It's called Western Anatolia because this is what Turkish side wants us to write in our school books. Because Turkey is also working with soft power. So 10 years later, Armenian children will not call these Armenian Highlands. But the entire world knows this territory as Armenian Highlands. This is how it's called, also in geography books. But they don't want our children to have these texts in our school books because they have been trained in Turkey. And Turkey is not just Turkey. Turkey is a NATO member state, and it's an ally of the West. And Turkey is hoping very much that when Russia is pushed out of this region, Turkey will be supervising this region for NATO.
Yeah. Let me ask you one last question. Do the people in Armenia, in Yerevan, are they thinking that war is imminent? Are they worried that war is imminent?
Yes. Because Prime Minister Pashinyan is always pushing this idea that if I'm not the Prime Minister of Armenia, because I found ways to contact with President Aliyev, and we're now negotiating peace treaty. So once I'm not on this position anymore, the war will start. Ooh. As long as we stop surrendering our territories to Azerbaijan, the war will start. Do you want? We have already lost 5,000 plus young men during the 44-day war. This is what he says. He says the opposition is composed of revanchists who want a new war to start. So if you want peace, elect me again, over and over again. So from one side, Armenian Prime Minister is threatening people of Armenia with war and saying that there will inevitably be war if I am not the Prime Minister, and if we do not surrender Artsakh completely and give whatever part of Sunni Azerbaijan wants. Directly. He's saying it directly whenever he speaks to the people or whenever he gives an interview, which is, of course, it's unimaginable for Armenians, but this is what he's doing. And these people are confused and they don't know whom to trust because Pashinyan and his propaganda is being threatening people with war and also making them to not to believe the opposition because they were spreading fake information about the opposition together with Aliyev. It is so funny. Sometimes when I watch their press conferences, it seems like they're talking using the same paper. Because what Aliyev says from Baku, he says that Armenia is a false and artificial state. Armenia has no right to exist because Armenians are not indigenous in this region. They came from nowhere and occupied our land. And the next day, Nikol Pashinyan holds a press conference and says that you see that within these 30 plus years of independence after the collapse of Soviet Union, Armenia actually didn't have the so-called, property certificate. Like we don't know what is our territory. We don't know where our borders are. So they're kind of playing this game together. Aliyev is saying something and Pashinyan is saying nearly the same thing from here, but in different formulations. So there is a vast part of population in Armenia who actually believes that these two are playing together, that they have a plan and they're pushing it forward because the Anglo-Saxon, this conglomerate, if we can call it so, that has always been supporting Turkey and interests of Turkey in this region because Turkey does all the dirty job for them here. In Syria, in Libya, anywhere, in Iraq, also in Azerbaijan during the 44-day war, Turkey was supplying Arab mercenaries to fight on the side of Azerbaijan from Syria, from anywhere they can find people who are ready to fight for money. They're supporting this idea because they want to create this corridor to unite two Turkish states, Azerbaijan and Turkey. Because this is what Turkey wants. Turkey says, pay me for the dirty job I'm doing for you. Pay me by forcing Armenia to open this corridor. They don't care how many Armenians die on the way to the goal they want to achieve. They did the same in India when they deliberately separated Pakistan from India. When Pakistanis and Indians, it's the same people but with different religions, and now they hate each other. It's the same soft power that they are. How did Pakistan become a nuclear state suddenly? Why? How did that happen? Because the British provided it, because they wanted to punish India for fighting for independence.
Yeah. Natalya, I want to thank you for this update. We'll stay in touch. We just
I'm
have
back.
to
I'm sorry. My internet connection sometimes goes back and forth.
It's okay.
So our people in Armenia here, sometimes you look at what's happening downtown in Yerevan, and it seems like people don't care. They, I don't know, they go to restaurants, they walk along the streets, they have fun, they have beer, festivals, wine festivals, I don't know. And it's sometimes people, the tourists that come from other countries, they just do not believe that this is a country that was in the state of war some 2.5 years ago. But I can understand that reality is so difficult that people just try to distance themselves from this reality. And this is also the result of the same toolbox, a tool from the same toolbox that powers Greater West, the collective West is using whenever they need to draw population into an apathy so that population does not flood the streets to fight against something. This is what they do. So they scare them so much that people are frustrated so badly. They don't want to do anything. They just want to have fun, go to the restaurants, drink, and live their regular life, pretending that nothing is happening.
Yeah. Natalya, I want to thank you for this update. We'll stay in touch. We just have to hope and pray that war doesn't break out and that Victoria Nuland doesn't show up in Azerbaijan.
Oh, please, God forbid. God forbid. That woman, she's terrible. But you see, yesterday there's been a Security Council hearing and nothing happened. Because the Armenian side, I mean, this official Yerevan, who actually washed its hands of Artsakh and said, we cannot support you anymore, go to direct Baku. How did we allow Minister of Foreign Affairs of Armenia to represent Artsakh in the Security Council of the UN? They did not do their homework. I was listening to this miserable and pathetic person yesterday, and I was so mad. They did not even do their homework. I mean, this is such a great opportunity. You go to the Security Council of the United Nations, do your bloody homework and present the situation to get a proper resolution. What they did, they gave a possibility for Azerbaijan to present that there's no blockade. This is ridiculous. We can open a road from Ardam to Stepanakert. Let's do it. Why? So we think that there is no starvation if you refuse this road. And Armenian side didn't say anything about that the Artsakh people refuse integration. That's why they closed that road. They put concrete blocks on that road not to allow Azeri trucks with food to enter Artsakh. Just think how strong these people are. They're starving, but they don't want to take even one grain from Azeri.